guys, Lotus is back. It's been a while since I've done a video, so I'm going to do an update video on my Breya commander deck. Breya is 4/4 for 4 mana, 1 of every color but green. When she enters the battlefield, you put 2 1/1 blue 1/1 blue artifact Thopter creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. And she has, for 2 mana, sacrifice 2 artifacts, choose 1. She deals 3 damage to target player, so you can lightning bolt them to the face. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, or you gain 5 life. She's a really great toolbox option if you like artifacts. So starting with the basic lands, we have 3 plains, 3 islands, 2 swamps, and 2 mountains. You know, some basic land flavor. It's nice. I have 2 check lands in here because they're nice to use. We have Drowned Catacomb and Glacial Fortress, which tap for blue and black and blue and white, respectively. We've got 5 shock lands in this deck. Hallowed Fountain, Sacred Foundry, Watery Grave, Steam Vents, and Godless Shrine. Now, we might need to get those, out of our deck from time to time. So, we have 3 fetch lands. They're all Zendikar fetch lands. Arid Mesa, Marsh Flats, and Scalding Tarn. Though there are budget options available if you need them, like the Khans fetches. We have 4 tri-lands in this deck. Arcane Sanctum, which is the Esper tri-land. Mystic Monastery, which is the Jeskai tri-land. Crumbling Necropolis, which is the Grixis tri-land, and the Mardu tri-land, Nomad Outpost. Breya is a 4-color deck, so we need some filtering, some mana fixing. So we've got Cascade Bluffs, Fetid Heath, Sunken Ruins, and the new one from Amonkhet, Cascading Cataracts, which is amazing. It's a great card. Finally, since this is an artifact deck, we have artifact lands, every one that's in our color. Ancient Den, Seat of the Synod, Vault of Whispers, Great Furnace, and Darksteel Citadel. And finally, we have 4 utility lands. Buried Ruin, just to get an artifact back from our graveyard. Command Tower, because it's Command Tower, and colors are nice. Inventors Fair, because gaining life for artifacts is really nice, and you can also tutor for an artifact. And Reliquary Tower, because it's Commander, you draw a lot of cards. Alright, let's get started on the creatures first. Suture Priest is really awesome in Commander because in this deck, you're making a lot of Thopters, so you're gaining a lot of life, and whenever someone puts a creature out, you can make them lose a life. Eldrazi Displacer is a combo piece with Breya. You can blank her, make up infinite Thopters. You get the idea. Chief Engineer gives all of your artifact spells Convoke, so you can use your creatures to cast your artifacts. So, that's really cool. Tap your creatures to get mana. Etherium Sculptor makes all your artifact spells cheaper by 1. Trophy Mage tutors out a 3 mana cost artifact, which I have quite a bit of good ones in this deck. Master Transmuter is really great if you want to just sneak in an artifact, like take a Thopter and make it a Wormcoil engine. It's cool. Or if you really need to protect an artifact and you can just bounce it back to your hand. Padim gives all your artifacts hexproof. He also draws you cards if you have the highest mana costed artifact, which I frequently do. Magus of the Will is an inclusion that I took out of the deck originally and then put it back in. Just trying it out. I can get all my artifacts back, but some of my other things are hard to get back, so, you know, I can just cast it from the graveyard for one turn. Marionette Master is really great in this deck because you make a bunch of artifacts and you can put cranial plating on her and make her huge, and then people just die whenever you sack Thopters. It's really great. Goblin Welder is, you know, it's very, very nice to just make a Thopter into whatever huge artifact was in your graveyard. Hellkite Tyrant is an alternate win condition. You just swing your big dragon and steal everyone's artifacts, which sometimes is everything because of Mycosynth Lattice. Hannah, Ship's Navigator, is she gets artifacts and enchantments out of the graveyard. The enchantment part is what I use her for. Shroom gets artifacts out of the graveyard and back into play. He's really nice to have on the battlefield. Filigree Angel gains me a lot of life, because it's 3 life for each artifact I control. And if I have Mycosynth Lattice, that's pretty much everything I own. Metalworker is just a mana rock. Honestly, he just pumps mana out so fast. Shimmer Mirror, gives all my artifacts flash, because who doesn't want to play their things on other people's turns? Solemn Simulacrum is awesome. He's an amazing commander card. Gets lands or draws cards whenever he enters or dies. Koldatha Forge Master is another tutor. Sacrifice 3 artifacts to go get an artifact and put it onto the battlefield. It's really good, and I usually just sack 3 Thopters for a Darksteel Forge. Thopter Assembly is part of a combo that I just recently added. You'll see it after this in a few bits. Duplicant is really good if people have pesky creatures that you want to get rid of. You can just exile them, and you can bounce this thing and keep exiling things. It's really nice, excuse me. Wormcoil Engine, big beater, has Death Touch. Whenever it dies, it makes 2 worms with Death Touch and Lifelink. Well, Death Touch or Lifelink. So, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Myr Battlesphere. It makes 4 mirrors when it comes into play. You can bounce it just like Breya. You get the idea. Plus, when it attacks, you can just kill someone. Since this is an artifact deck, I run a lot of artifacts. Starting with Skull Clamp, because drawing cards is nice, and, my Thopters are 1/1s. Slap Skull Clamp on them and make them into 2 cards. It's really nice. Soul Ring, because Soul Ring. Voltaic Key, because everything in my deck is basically an artifact, so untapping artifacts are nice. Metalworker, twice. Gilded Lotus. You get the idea. Cranial Plating, you can put it on anything and make it huge. Though my favorite thing to put it on is Marionette Master, and I can have people die from sacking artifacts. Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves is usually something that I put on Padim, so he has hexproof as well. Well, Shroud, but I don't really want to target him anyway. Nim Deathmantle. I can basically sack Breya, get her out of the graveyard, bolt people to the face, gain a lot of life. It's a combo piece. Time Sieve is the other half of my Thopter Assembly combo. It's an old combo, but basically Thopter Assembly comes into play with 5 artifacts. If you have it on the battlefield and you don't have any artifacts at the beginning of your upkeep, you can bring it back to your hand and put 5 Thopters onto the battlefield. You can then sack all 5 Thopters for an extra turn, and then you just repeat. Ashnod's Altar, because mana's nice. sacrificing Thopters for 2 colorless mana seems pretty good. Basalt Monolith is just a really, really good mana rock in this deck because it just pumps out so much mana with Voltaic Key and Clock of Omens and ways to untap it. It's really nice. Chromatic Lantern because you want all your colors. Mirage Mirror because this can basically be anything, so it's nice to have options. And it's 3 mana, so I can tutor it out with Trophy Mage. Clock of Omens, I can tap 2 of my Thopters to untap something relevant, like a Kaldatha Forge Master or Metalworker or whatever. It's really nice. Clan Ironworks, which is basically Ashnod's Altar for artifacts. Sacrifice an artifact to get 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Neverill's Disc. It's mean, but and for the most part, I don't really use it, but it's something that I have as a last resort option. Panharmonicon, because why make 2 Thopters when you can make 4 or more than that? Thran Dynamo, because it's a huge mana rock. Trading Post, because it's basically a Planeswalker in artifact form. Unwinding Clock. Unwinding Clock is really great because I can untap all of my artifacts on other people's turns. It's really nice. Gilded Lotus, the best mana rock in my deck. It makes colorless mana, and it makes colored mana, and that's why it's the best in my deck. So I like to untap that thing a lot. Mirror works. It basically copies any artifact in my deck apart from the Thopters that Breya makes and the mirrors that Myr Battlesphere makes. This is an all-star in my deck. And the last 2 I'm just going to put together. Mycosynth Lattice and Darksteel Forge. You know it, you hate it. It's a combo. Mycosynth Lattice makes everything in artifacts. Darksteel Forge makes all your artifacts indestructible. Suddenly, everything on your field is indestructible. Next, let's go on to Planeswalkers, because they're pretty important in this deck. Saheeli Rai, the extra scry is nice, but mainly I use this for copying artifacts, just like Mirror works. But this one usually just makes a copy of Breya. Sometimes I get to alter, and when I do, I get to get artifacts, and they're nice. Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, because I have a lot of artifacts, and people will lose a lot of life, and I will gain a lot of life. Plus his ability to put artifacts into my hand is really nice. Duretti gets artifacts out of the graveyard, and it also lets me discard cards and draw more cards. It's nice to have. I rarely ult him, though. Tezzeret the Seeker. Untap his +1 ability is surprisingly really good. Untapping up to 2 artifacts is really nice. Plus he can tutor for an artifact if you need it to his -X ability. I never ult him. And Liliana Vess is just to tutor anything. To have a demonic tutor on a stick. Next we're going to go to the instants. Path to Exile because creatures are pesky and exiling them gets rid of them for good. Return to Dust because exiling enchantments and artifacts is nice. Plus usually I get 2 of them because it's on my main phase. Hurkyl's Recall. Sometimes people try to exile all my artifacts with Merciless Eviction or whatever, and if I have mana untapped, I can use Hurkyl's Recall to return all of my artifacts back to my hand. It's a last resort, but it saved me quite a bit. Cyclonic Rift. If you play blue in Commander, you have this card. It's just too good. A one-sided board wipe is ridiculous. And Spell Swindle. This one's German, so it's like Zuberschweidel. I think it looks cool. But it's basically mana drain, but it's not as good because it's 5 mana instead of 2 mana. I mean, that's no contest in a competitive format. But in Commander, it's really good. Plus, instead of giving me mana directly to my mana pool, it gives me that many artifacts, treasure tokens that sack for any color of mana, 1 mana of any color. So I can counter something really huge and then get 6 to 8 artifacts. It's really nice. Sorceries. We have Vandal Blast because some people have pesky artifacts and I want to get rid of them. Supreme Verdict, because some people have creatures and I want to get rid of them. Scrap Mastery. Usually what I do is I'll sack everything to Breya, or, sack all my artifacts before I do it, and then cast this, get all my artifacts back on the field, and I basically win the game if this resolves. Phyrexian Rebirth, because destroying all creatures, then getting a huge artifact is amazing. And finally, Merciless Eviction. It's one of the greatest spells, one of the best raft spells in Magic. Usually I use this to, after someone's, when someone has something really pesky that I can't really deal with, like enchantments, because I don't run a lot of them, so I can typically sack all my artifacts if I really need to get rid of all artifacts. For the most part, this doesn't hurt me, and that's a good thing for me. And finally, we have 3 enchantments. Rhystic Study. If you're playing blue, this is a really good card to have, because you can draw a bunch of cards. You'd be surprised how many times you just get ahead because someone just pays the 1. Someone just doesn't pay the 1. And you just draw cards. Usually it's something that people forget about, and it's surprisingly good card advantage. Thopter Spy Network is really good because it just gives me an artifact at the beginning of my upkeep. And whenever one of my artifact creatures deals combat damage to a player, I can draw a card. So it's really nice. And this is my favorite enchantment ever, and one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's called Vicious Shadows. It says, whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may have Vicious Shadows deal damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hands. This basically hoses blue players, and anyone really. I basically just start sacking Thopters and people just die. So that's my update video on Breya. Let me know in the comments, feedback for this deck to make it better, or if you, like how my deck runs. I'd love to hear it. I know about Academy Ruins. I've been looking into it. I just haven't picked one up yet. It will make it into the deck one day. But until then, this has been Lotus. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.